The emergency lights flashed red throughout the Coalition Command Center. Director Thelmos stood before the massive viewing screen, his forearms crossed tightly against his chest. On the screen, Viridian 7 mining station flickered in and out of normal space. Sometimes it looked solid. Sometimes it seemed to exist in 3 places at once. Sometimes it simply wasn't there at all. 40,000 people lived on that station. 40,000 civilians who couldn't escape because the distortion field around the station made teleportation impossible, and any ship that got too close simply stopped existing in measurable reality. Show me the list again, Thelmos said quietly, his assistant. A floating jellyfish-like being named Prill projected the hologram. 17 species had sent their best teams. The Corthan military specialists, famous across the galaxy for their tactical genius. The Yevon reality engineers who could bend physics itself. The Cylon hive mind problem solvers. The list went on. All of them had failed. 3 teams had been lost completely. The others had barely made it back, their members driven mad by what they'd seen inside the distortion field. There is one more option, Prill said hesitantly. Thelmos closed his primary eyes. He knew what Prill was going to say. He'd been avoiding this conversation for 3 days now. No, Director, the humans, absolutely not. Thelmos turned away from the screen. You know what happened on Keller 5? They solved the hostage situation by crashing a cargo ship through the building. Yes, they saved everyone, but they also destroyed half the city district. They saved everyone, Prill repeated softly. By accident. Their plan was insane. It only worked because humans are too stubborn to understand when something is impossible. Thelmos moved to his desk, his claws clicking on the metal surface. The Council will never approve it. The Council approved it an hour ago. Thelmos spun around. What? Prill projected another document. 17 Council members voted yes. 8 voted no. They've already sent the signal to Earth. For a long moment, Thelmos said nothing. Then he sat down heavily in his chair. May the First Makers help us all. The human ship arrived 6 hours later. It wasn't impressive to look at humans built their vessels for function, not beauty. The ship looked like someone had welded together spare parts and strapped engines to the result. But it moved fast, cutting through space with aggressive confidence. Thelmos waited in the docking bay with a security team. He told himself it was protocol. Really, he was nervous. Humans had been part of the Coalition for 50 years now, but they were still strange, unpredictable, dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with weapons. The airlock hissed open. 5 humans stepped out wearing dark uniforms with minimal equipment. They looked fragile, soft skin, no natural armor, no obvious enhanced abilities. But Thelmos had read the reports. He knew better than to judge humans by appearance. The lead human stepped forward. He was tall, with short, dark hair and calm eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. Captain De Jong, Earth Special Response Division. This is my team. He gestured to the others. Hana, our engineer. Taemin, Xenobiology Specialist. Ji-woo, Medical Officer. Kyung-soo, Equipment Specialist. Equipment Specialist? Thelmos asked. The human called Kyung-soo grinned. He had an easy smile that somehow made Thelmos more nervous. I make things work. Or I make them stop working, depending on what we need. I see. Thelmos gestured toward the command center. Please follow me. We'll brief you on the situation. As they walked, Thelmos noticed how the humans moved, relaxed, almost casual, like they were taking a tour, not responding to a crisis that had defeated 17 other teams. In the command center, Thelmos pulled up the data on Viridian 7. The distortion began 4 days ago. We don't know what caused it. The field is expanding slowly. Inside the field, reality becomes unstable, time doesn't flow correctly. Space folds in on itself. Our best scientists say the mathematics don't make sense. Hannah leaned forward, studying the readings. She was younger than the others, with bright, intelligent eyes. Oh, this is beautiful. Beautiful? Prill floated closer, confused. It's killing the station. Well, yes, but look at the pattern. Hannah pointed at the energy signatures. It's not random. There's structure here. Complex structure. Whatever's causing this has incredible sophistication. Temin moved beside her, his eyes scanning the data rapidly. These distortions. I've seen something similar before. Every alien in the room turned to look at him. Where? Thelmos demanded. In Earth's history. About 200 years ago, there was an incident in the Pacific Ocean, a spatial anomaly that appeared for 6 weeks. The military threw everything at it. Nothing worked. Then one day it just resolved itself. How? Thelmos asked. Te-Min smiled. No idea. The records are classified. But we're still here, so someone figured it out. Dae-Young studied the station's layout with a tactical eye. How many rescue attempts have been made? 17, Thelmos said. Each one tried to breach the field using advanced technology. The Yevon even attempted to create a counter-distortion. All failed. Because you're treating it like a problem to solve with force? Jiwoo said quietly. She was the smallest of the humans, with gentle features and thoughtful eyes. Has anyone considered that whatever's causing this might be ... aware? The room fell silent. You think something is doing this deliberately? Prill asked. I think, Jiwoo said carefully, that we're looking at this wrong. You said time doesn't flow correctly inside. Space folds. Reality becomes unstable. That sounds less like a malfunction and more like a defense mechanism. Kyung-soo pulled out a handheld scanner and pointed it at the display. If it's a defense, the question is, what's it defending against? Or what is it afraid of? Taemin added. Thelmos felt his stomach sink. The humans had been here 20 minutes and they were already suggesting theories that none of the Coalition's best minds had considered. You think the anomaly is ... scared? Maybe. Dae-Young looked at his team. What do you need? Hannah was already making notes on her datapad. Full sensor data from all 17 attempts. Engineering specifications for the station. And access to your quantum resonance lab. The lab is restricted, Thelmos started. Then unrestrict it, Dae-Young said simply. You called us for help. Let us help. There was something in the human captain's voice. Not arrogance exactly. Just absolute certainty. Like the word impossible didn't translate into whatever language humans thought in. Thelmos made a decision that he knew he'd either be thanked for or tried for later. You have full access. All of you. Anything you need? Great. Kyung-soo headed toward the door. I'm going to need a lot of duct tape. What's duct tape? Prill asked. The other human smiled. Even Dae-Young's stern face softened slightly. You'll find out, he said. As the human team left to begin their work, Thelmos watched them go. They walked like people heading to solve a puzzle, not into a phenomenon that had already claimed lives and driven trained professionals insane. Do you think they can do it? Prill asked quietly. Thelmos looked at the screen showing Viridian 7, flickering between reality and something else. I think, he said slowly, that humans don't understand the concept of can't, whether that saves us or dooms us. We're about to find out. In the quantum lab, Hannah was already dismantling equipment, her hands moving with practiced precision. Taemin worked beside her, running calculations that scrolled across multiple screens. Jiwoo sat quietly, eyes closed. As if listening to something no one else could hear, Dae-Young and Kyung-soo stood at the window, looking at the distant, distorted station. This is going to be interesting, Kyung-soo said. It always is, Dae-Young replied. Neither of them looked worried. To them, this was just another day. Just another impossible situation that needed a human solution. In the command center, alarms began to sound. The distortion field was expanding again. Time was running out. Hannah had been working for 14 straight hours. Her eyes were red and her hands shook slightly as she drank her 5th cup of coffee, but she was smiling. That worried the alien scientists watching her. This shouldn't be possible, said Dr. Voroth. a Yevon physicist who'd lost half his team trying to breach the distortion field. He pointed at Hana's equations floating in the holographic display. You're suggesting the field is biological in nature? Not biological exactly, Hana said, adjusting a calculation. But alive, conscious, look at how it responds to stimuli. She replayed footage from the previous rescue attempts. Every time a ship approached with weapons charged, the distortion intensified. When the Korthan tried to force their way through with a battle cruiser, the field became violent. It was defending itself, Timon added. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by datapads showing biological patterns. I've been comparing the field's energy signature to known life forms. It doesn't match anything exactly, but the behavior patterns are consistent with a frightened juvenile. Director Thelmos, who'd been observing the humans' work, stepped closer. A juvenile what? We don't know, Taman admitted. Something big, something powerful, something that probably shouldn't exist in normal space without preparation. Wu entered the lab carrying a tray of food. She set it down and looked at the displays with her characteristic calm focus. Has anyone tried talking to it? The alien stared at her. Talk to it? Voroth's translator struggled with the concept. It's a spatial anomaly, not a person. It's a scared child, Jiwoo corrected gently. At least that's what all this data suggests. You've been trying to break through its defenses or counter its abilities. No one's tried to communicate, to let it know you want to help. We don't have translation protocols for spatial distortions, Prill pointed out. Then we make some, Hannah said simply. She was already pulling up new screens, her fingers flying across the controls. Give me Taman's biological data and the resonance frequencies from the field. I can build a device that might, and I stress might, create a bridge for basic communication. How long will that take? Delmos asked. 3 days if I follow proper procedure. 8 hours if I don't. And the success rate? Hannah shrugged. No idea. I'm inventing completely new technology here. It'll either work or explode. Maybe both. This was exactly what Thelmos had been afraid of. Human solutions always sounded insane. But 40,000 people were running out of time. Do it, he said. Just try not to explode anything important. Kyung-soo looked up from the corner where he'd been building something with spare parts. No promises. The next 8 hours passed in organized chaos. Hannah worked in the quantum lab, occasionally shouting for tools or materials. Kyung-soo disappeared into the station's engineering sections and returned with equipment that was definitely not supposed to be removed. Taman built translation matrices for a being that might not even think in translatable concepts. Ji-woo prepared herself mentally for what might be the most important conversation in Coalition history. She meditated, reviewed her training in first contact psychology, and tried to imagine what it would be like to be a cosmic being trapped and terrified in a space too small. Dae-young coordinated everything with quiet efficiency. He made sure his team had what they needed, dealt with the increasingly nervous Coalition officials, and planned backup strategies for when things inevitably went wrong. You're very calm for someone about to attempt something impossible, Prill observed. Dae-young was checking his equipment, making sure everything was secure. This isn't impossible. It's just difficult. There's a difference. What if it doesn't work? Then we try something else. Dae-young looked at the floating alien with eyes that had seen too many crises to panic at one more. Humans are good at adapting. It's kind of our thing. When Hannah finally finished the device, it looked nothing like proper Coalition technology. It was a jumbled mess of components wired together in ways that made the alien engineers cringe. But when she powered it on, the readings were undeniable. It was creating a resonance field that matched the distortion's frequency. This is your communication device? Voroth asked, horrified. It's not pretty, but it works, Hannah said proudly. Probably. Won't know for sure until we test it. And the testing involves going into the distortion field. Yep, Hannah started packing the device carefully. Someone has to take it in there and activate it in proximity to whatever's at the center. That's suicide. Thelmos said flatly. Everyone who's gone in has either died or gone mad. They went in ready for a fight, Jiwoo said. She was suiting up in protective gear, moving with practiced efficiency. We're going in ready to talk. That changes everything. Dae-young gathered his team for a final briefing. Here's the situation. The distortion field is unstable. Inside, physics doesn't work right. Time might loop. Space might fold. You might see things that don't make sense. Stay focused. Stay together. Trust your training. And if the device doesn't work? Taemin asked. Then Kyung-soo has made us a door knocker. Dae-young gestured to what Kyung-soo was carrying, a modified fusion cutter that hummed with dangerous energy. It's beautiful, Kyung-soo said, patting the weapon affectionately. Completely breaks about 6 safety regulations, but it should punch through most forms of matter. Or spacetime. Haven't really tested which. You built a weapon without testing it? Vorath looked faint. Testing is for people with time, Kyung-soo replied cheerfully. We have about 12 hours before the distortion field reaches the station's critical systems. The humans loaded into a small shuttle. It was designed for short-range work, heavily shielded but not armed. As Hannah had said, they weren't going in for a fight. The Coalition Command Center fell silent as the shuttle launched. Every screen showed the small vessel approaching the distortion field. The field itself looked like reality was tearing colors that shouldn't exist, shapes that hurt to look at. Space folding in on itself like paper. They're entering the field, Prill announced quietly. Inside the shuttle, the humans felt the change immediately. Gravity shifted sideways, then disappeared, then came back too strong. The lights flickered between colors. For a moment, Taemin saw himself sitting in the seat across from where he actually was. Everyone okay? Dae-young asked. Define okay, Kyung-soo muttered. His left hand was temporarily transparent. He waved it experimentally. That's new. Hannah was monitoring her instruments, though the readings made no sense. The field is reacting to our presence, but not violently. More like... curious? It knows we're here, Jiwoo said softly. Her empathic senses were being overwhelmed by emotion, fear, loneliness, confusion. It's so scared. The shuttle pushed deeper. Reality became more unstable. At one point, they existed in 3 different times simultaneously. Kyung-soo's arm turned inside out for a moment before snapping back to normal. Well, that was unpleasant, he said, flexing his fingers. Jiwoo, remind me to have you check that later. Adding it to the list, Jiwoo replied, her voice strained but steady. Finally, they reached the center. The station's core was visible through the distortion, but it wasn't alone. Something was there. Something vast and beautiful and completely alien. It shimmered between dimensions, part energy, part matter, part something that had no name in any language. That's what we came to talk to, Hannah whispered, awe in her voice. Ji-woo stood slowly. I'm going in, not alone, Dae-young said. Yes, alone. Ji-woo looked at her captain with gentle firmness. It's terrified. A group will seem like a threat. One person, unarmed, calm, that's how we show we're not here to hurt it. Dae-young didn't like it. Every tactical instinct he had screamed against sending someone in alone. But Ji-woo was right. 5 minutes, he said. If anything goes wrong, we're coming for you. Ji-woo smiled. I know. She activated Hana's device and stepped through the final barrier. The entity was massive up close, beautiful in ways that defied description. It turned its attention to her. She felt it like pressure behind her eyes, and then Ji-woo did something that no one in the coalition had thought to try. She sat down on the floor, made herself small and non-threatening, and spoke gently. Hello, I know you're scared. I know everyone who's come here has tried to hurt you or force you out. But we're not here for that. We're here to help. Will you let us help you? For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the distortion around them began to calm. Not much, but enough. In the shuttle, Taemin was staring at his readings. It's working. The field is stabilizing. Outside in the command center, aliens watched in stunned silence as the impossible happened. The human had made contact. Jiwoo sat on the cold floor of the station's core, maintaining eye contact with a being that existed in 7 dimensions at once. Through Hannah's device, she could feel emotions that had no human equivalent, colors that were feelings, sounds that were thoughts, textures that were memories. "You're running from something," Jiwoo said softly. The device translated her words into resonance patterns the entity could understand. "Something hurt you. Something destroyed your family." The entity pulsed with grief so profound that Jiwoo had to close her eyes against it. When the emotion passed, she saw images not with her eyes, but with her mind, a peaceful place between stars. Others like this entity, larger and older, then violence, bright lights, weapons she couldn't understand. The family torn apart. "I'm sorry," Jiwoo whispered. "I'm so sorry that happened to you." In the shuttle, Dae-young was monitoring the conversation through Jiwoo's communication link. "She's making progress. The entity is communicating." "But look at this." Taemin pointed at his screen. "Its biology is unstable. It's not supposed to exist in normal space without some kind of support structure. That's why the distortion field, it's not trying to hurt anyone. It's trying to survive." Hannah was already working on calculations. "If it stays here much longer, it's going to collapse. And when something that big collapses in normal space, the energy release will." She paused. "Let's just say the station won't be the only thing destroyed. How long do we have?" Dae-young asked. 12 hours, maybe less." Inside the core, Jiwoo had learned the entity's story. It had fled to the station because it detected energy signatures that felt safe. It didn't know the station was inhabited. When the Coalition sent armed ships to investigate, the entity thought its pursuers had found it. Every rescue attempt had looked like an attack. So it hid deeper, pulled the distortion field tighter, and waited to die. "We want to help you leave," Jiwoo said. "But we need you to trust us. Can you do that?" The entity's response was uncertain. It had learned not to trust. "I know," Jiwoo said. "I know you're scared, but look at me." She opened her arms, showing she had no weapons, no armor, nothing but herself. "I'm fragile. I'm small. I could never hurt you. Neither could the others. We just want you to be safe." Slowly, carefully, the entity began to calm. The distortion field didn't disappear, but it stabilized. Jiwoo could feel the entity's decision. It would trust her. But only her. When Jiwoo returned to the shuttle, her face was pale but determined. "It'll work with us, but we have a problem. It can't leave on its own. Its biology requires a specific energy matrix to transition out of normal space safely. Without that, trying to leave will kill it and destroy everything within a light year." "Can we provide that energy?" Dae-young asked. "I don't know," Jiwoo said. "I'm a doctor, not a physicist." Hannah was already running simulations. Her face grew grim as she worked. "I can do it, theoretically, but it's going to be complicated." "How complicated?" Taemin asked. "Extremely." Hannah pulled up a schematic of the station. "I need to overload the station's reactor in a controlled cascade. Channel that energy through a quantum tunnel. Use the station's entire superstructure as a focusing array. The energy release has to be precise. Too little, and the entity dies. Too much, and we create a second sun right here." "Can the station handle that?" Dae-young asked. "No," Hannah said bluntly. "The station will tear itself apart. But everyone should have time to evacuate if we're fast." "How much time do you need?" 14 minutes from start to finish. The reactor will be in critical overload for 13 of those minutes." The team returned to the Coalition Command Center. Dae-young presented their findings to Director Thelmos and the assembled council members who'd been watching via live feed. "Absolutely not," Thelmos said immediately. "You're suggesting we deliberately overload a reactor that powers a station with 40,000 people on it?" "The people will be evacuated," Dae-young replied calmly. "In 14 minutes? Impossible. We need at least 6 hours to evacuate a station this size properly. Then start evacuating now," Hannah said. "Because in 12 hours, that entity is going to collapse anyway, and when it does, evacuation won't matter." A council member, a crystalline being called Elder Tresh, spoke up. Even if we agreed to this plan, which we don't, your method violates coalition safety regulations. The energy cascade you're describing could chain react beyond your control? It won't, Hannah said with confidence that made the aliens nervous. How can you be certain? Because I'm very good at my job. The council erupted in argument. Some wanted to attempt another conventional rescue. Others wanted to destroy the entity before it collapsed naturally. A few supported the human plan, but they were in the minority. Dae-Young listened to the debate with growing impatience. Finally, he spoke quietly to his team. We have two choices. Wait for permission we're not going to get, or do what we came here to do. They'll arrest us, Taemin pointed out. Probably, Dae-Young agreed. After we succeed, I can live with that, Hannah grinned. I'll need access to the reactor control systems. They're locked down, Priel said, having overheard the conversation. You can't access them without authorization codes. Taemin pulled out his datapad. Authorization codes are just fancy locks. And locks can be picked. That's illegal, Thelmos protested. So's letting 40,000 people die when we can save them, Kyung-soo said. He was already loading equipment. Captain, what's the plan? Dae-Young looked at his team, 4 people who'd followed him into impossible situations before and would do it again. Hannah, you need the reactor. Taemin, get her access. Kyung-soo will need equipment that's probably locked up in restricted storage. Gu-woo, stay with the entity. Keep it calm. Everyone else, he looked at the coalition officials. You might want to start that evacuation. What followed would later be called either brilliant strategy or outright mutiny. Depending on who was telling the story, Tae-Min had spent 2 days studying coalition computer systems. He knew their security had a flaw. It was biological. The systems used DNA locks, assuming that was impossible to bypass. But Taemin had samples from dozens of species who'd been working on the station. With the right equipment, he could synthesize a master key. He worked in a storage closet, his fingers flying over his portable lab equipment. It took him 18 minutes to create a biological sample that would open any door in the station. Kyung-soo's job was simpler but more direct. The equipment they needed was in Coalition Secure Storage Level 7. The door was guarded. Kyung-soo walked up to the guard's 2 large Korthan soldiers and smiled. I need to borrow some things, he said pleasantly. Access denied, one guard growled. That's disappointing. Kyung-soo pulled out a small device. This is a resonance disruptor. Completely non-lethal. It'll make you both very dizzy for about 10 minutes. I really don't want to use it, but I will if I have to. The guards reached for their weapons. Kyung-soo pressed the button. Both guards collapsed, conscious but unable to stand as their inner ears were flooded with conflicting signals. Sorry, Kyung-soo said sincerely as he stepped over them. You're just doing your job. So am I? Hana reached the reactor control room with Taemin's synthesized access codes. 2 coalition engineers tried to stop her. She explained the situation calmly and clearly. They didn't move. Look, Hannah said, I'm going to do this with or without your help. With your help, we all survive. Without it, I have to work alone, and the margin for error gets bigger. Your choice. One engineer, a young Yevon named Kes, looked at the data Hannah had provided. These calculations. They might actually work. They will work, Hannah corrected. Kes looked at his colleague, then at Hannah. If we help you and you're wrong, we'll be executed. If we don't try and I'm right, you'll be dead, Hannah pointed out. At least my way you're alive to complain about it later. Kes made a decision that probably saved his career or ended it. What do you need? Within an hour, the human team had taken control of critical station systems. Alarms blared throughout the command center. Security teams mobilized. And Thelmos stood frozen, watching his orderly station descend into chaos. Stop them, a council member demanded. Thelmos didn't move. He was watching the humans work, their efficiency, their coordination, their absolute confidence. No, he said quietly. What? I said no. Thelmos turned to face the council. They're doing what we should have done from the start. They're trying. Let them try. This is mutiny. This is a rescue operation. Thelmos made a decision he'd been avoiding for days. All personnel, begin evacuation procedures. This is not a drill. You have 12 hours, move. In the reactor room, Hana was making final preparations. Her hands were steady despite the fact that she was about to do something no one had ever attempted before. Ready? Dae-young asked over the com. Ready? Hana confirmed. The entity understands what we're doing, Ji-woo reported from the core. It's scared, but it trusts us. Kyung-soo? In position at the reactor manual override, Kyung-soo said. He was standing at the emergency control station, his hand hovering over the physical cutoff switch. If anything went wrong, he'd have to vent the reactor core manually. It would save the station but kill him and doom the entity. Tae-min? Monitoring all systems, Tae-min replied. We're as ready as we're going to be. Dae-young took a breath. The reactor's hum changed from a steady pulse to a rising whine. Power levels climbed past safety limits and kept going. In the control room, Hana watched a dozen screens at once, her eyes tracking energy flows that would have taken a normal coalition team hours to monitor. 1 minute in, she announced. Reactor at 115% capacity. Within parameters. On the station, evacuation alarms shrieked. 40,000 people moved toward docking bays and escape pods. Most didn't know why they were evacuating. They just knew that when humans started breaking rules, something big was about to happen. Tae-min was in a monitoring station tracking the entity's biological responses. It's feeling the energy buildup. Heart rate equivalent is increasing. Ji-woo, keep it calm. In the core, Ji-woo sat close to the entity. She could feel its fear like static on her skin. It's okay, she said softly. I know it's scary. I know it feels dangerous. But we're here with you. We won't let you fall. The entity pulsed with uncertainty. The energy building in the reactor felt like the weapons that had destroyed its family. Every instinct told it to flee, to fight, to protect itself. I know, Wu said, sensing its panic. It feels the same. But it's not. This is different. This is help, not harm. Trust me, please. The entity's distortion field flickered for a moment. It started to collapse defensively. Then slowly it stabilized. The entity chose to trust. 2 minutes, Hana called out. Reactor at 130%. Temperature rising faster than projected. Kes, reroute coolant to secondary systems. The Yevon engineer worked beside her, his tentacles flying across controls. Coolant rerouted. This is insane. The reactor shouldn't be holding together. It's not holding together, Hana said matter-of-factly. It's tearing itself apart in slow motion. We're just managing the speed of the disaster. That's not reassuring. Wasn't meant to be. At the manual override station, Kyung-soo stood ready. The physical controls were ancient technology mechanical switches and levers that would work even if every computer system failed. His job was simple. If the reactor went critical too fast, he'd pull the emergency vent. It would flood the reactor chamber with liquid coolant, stopping the cascade instantly. It would also trap him in a radiation zone that would kill him in seconds. How you doing, Kyung-soo? Dae-young asked over the com. Living the dream, Captain. Kyung-soo's hand was steady on the lever. Just me and a reactor that's about to explode. Typical Tuesday. If you need to pull that lever, I know. I will. Kyung-soo smiled even though no one could see it. But I won't need to. Hana knows what she's doing. In the command center, Director Thelmos watched the evacuation progress. 20,000 people evacuated. 20,000 still on board. They were running out of time. The humans are going to get us all killed, a council member muttered. The humans are the only reason we have a chance, Thelmos replied. He couldn't look away from the screen showing the reactor status. The energy levels were climbing into territory that shouldn't be possible. 4 minutes, Hana announced. Her voice was still calm, but sweat beaded on her forehead. Reactor at 150%. Now comes the tricky part. The tricky part? Kes looked at her in disbelief. What have we been doing until now? The easy part? Hana's fingers danced across the controls. Now I need to create the quantum tunnel. This is going to feel weird. She activated the sequence. Throughout the station, people felt reality twist. Gravity shifted. Colors became sounds. Time stuttered. The quantum tunnel was forming a pathway through dimensions that shouldn't exist but did because Hana had made them. Tunnel forming, Taemin reported, but it's unstable. The resonance is fluctuating. I see it. Hana made adjustments. The entity's fear is interfering with the quantum field. Jiwoo, on it. Wu focused all her attention on the entity. Look at me. Only me. Not the energy? Not the tunnel? Just me. You're safe. I promise you're safe. The entity's attention fixed on Jiwoo. She was so small, so fragile, but her emotions were steady. No fear, no deception. Just absolute conviction that everything would be okay. The entity believed her. The tunnel stabilized. 6 minutes, Hana called. Reactor at 170%. Structural integrity of the station at 60% and falling. This is going to be close. Throughout the station, metal groaned. Hull plates buckled. Systems failed. But the evacuation continued. 30,000 people were off. 10,000 remained. We need to go faster, Thelmos said. We're at maximum safe evacuation speed, his assistant replied. Then go faster than safe. Move! At 8 minutes, disaster nearly struck. A power conduit exploded in the lower levels, sending a surge through the system. The reactor spiked 190%, 195%. That's too high. Kess shouted. The reactor is going to breach. Hana's eyes flicked between screens. Not yet. Not yet. The reactor hit 200%. The containment field began to fail. Kyung-soo's hand tightened on the emergency lever. Hana, wait. Hana, wait. She made one last adjustment. The reactor's energy flow shifted, redirecting into the quantum tunnel. The power level dropped back to 180%. See? Under control. Kyung-soo let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. You're going to give me a heart attack. Get in line, Kess muttered. At 9 minutes, the quantum tunnel was fully formed. It stretched from the station's core into dimensions that hurt to look at. Through Taemin's scanners, it appeared as a column of impossible mathematics made real. Tunnel complete, Hana announced. Beginning energy transfer sequence. Jiwoo, tell the entity it's time. Jiwoo stood slowly. The entity towered above her, vast and beautiful and terrified. This is it, she said gently. The path is ready. You just have to take it. Go home, go somewhere safe. And remember that someone cared enough to help. The entity pulsed with emotion, gratitude, fear, hope, sadness. It didn't want to leave Jiwoo. In the short time they'd known each other, she'd become the first being to show it kindness since its family died. I know, Wu said, tears in her eyes. I'll miss you too. But you can't stay. And I can't go with you. So this is goodbye. The entity began to move toward the tunnel. Its form stretched, reaching across dimensions. At 10 minutes, new alarms blared. The reactor was at 210%. The containment field was failing faster than projected. And worse, the quantum tunnel was starting to collapse on one side. We have a problem, Taemin said, his voice tight. The tunnel is destabilizing. The entity is too heavy for the energy matrix. It's pulling the tunnel apart. Can we compensate? Dae-young asked. Not from here, Hana said, checking her systems frantically. The resonance nodes need manual adjustment. Someone has to go into the reactor core and recalibrate them physically. The reactor core is critical, Kess said. The radiation levels, no suit can protect against that. How long would someone have? Dae-young asked quietly. Hana didn't want to answer. 3 minutes. Maybe 4. Then the radiation exposure would be fatal. And how long does the adjustment take? 2 minutes. If you know what you're doing. Dae-young started moving toward the reactor. Hana grabbed his arm. Captain, no. Your tactical command. If you go, the mission will continue, Dae-Young said firmly. That's an order, Hannah. Finish this. Wait. Kyung-Soo's voice came over the comm. Captain, I'm already at the reactor controls. I know the systems. Send me the adjustment sequence. Kyung-Soo, sir, with respect, this is my job. Kyung-Soo was already moving, heading toward the reactor core access. Making things work, remember? Let me work. Dae-Young wanted to refuse. Every instinct screamed at him to protect his team. But Kyung-Soo was right. He was already in position. Sending someone else would waste time they didn't have. Hannah, send him the sequence, Dae-Young ordered, his voice heavy. Sent, Hannah whispered. Kyung-Soo received the data on his datapad. Got it, okay, this doesn't look too hard. 17 nodes, specific sequence, precise timing. I can do this. He reached the reactor core access. The door opened to reveal a chamber that glowed with deadly light. His radiation counter immediately screamed in alarm. The levels were already above safe limits. Inside the core itself, they'd be lethal. Everyone? Kyung-Soo said. It's been an honor. Don't talk like that, Jo-woo said, her voice cracking. You're coming back. Sure, Kyung-Soo smiled. But just in case, tell my sister I love her. And tell Hannah her designs are terrible and she should feel bad about them. They are not. Hannah protested through tears. They absolutely are. Okay, going in. Kyung-Soo stepped into the core. His suit's radiation counter stopped screaming and just displayed a solid red warning. The numbers were climbing too fast to read. He had minutes. Maybe less. He started working on the first node. His hands were steady despite everything. This was just a job. Just another impossible problem to solve. He was good at this. Node 1, adjusted. Node 2, adjusted. Node 3, adjusted. At 11 minutes, the evacuation was complete. Every civilian was off the station. Only the human team and a few volunteers remained. The station was coming apart, hull breaches on multiple decks, systems failing, structure buckling. Kyung-Soo worked on. Node 7. Node 8. His vision was starting to blur. The radiation was cooking him from the inside, but his hands kept moving. Node 9, Node 10. The medical bay was silent, except for the steady beep of monitoring equipment. Ji-woo had been working on Kyung-Soo for 6 hours straight. Her hands were steady, but her face was drawn with exhaustion and fear. Radiation levels are decreasing, she said quietly. The nanotreatment is working. Dae-Young stood by the medical bed, watching his team member fight for life. Kyung-Soo looked terrible, pale skin, burned in ways that would leave scars, breathing assisted by machines, but he was alive. Will he make it? Hannah asked. She'd been waiting outside, blaming herself. Human medicine is stubborn, Gu-woo said with a tired smile. He absorbed enough radiation to kill him 3 times over. But his body is fighting. The nanots are repairing cellular damage faster than it can spread. If he makes it through the next 24 hours, she paused. He'll live, he'll recover, it'll take time, but he'll be okay. Hannah slumped against the wall in relief. He's an idiot. A brilliant, brave idiot. That's pretty much humanity in a nutshell, Taemin said from the doorway. He looked exhausted too. They all did. Outside the medical bay, the coalition was in chaos. The human team had saved 40,000 lives, rescued a cosmic entity, and prevented a catastrophic collapse that would have destroyed everything within a light year. They'd also violated approximately 17 different regulations, committed what could technically be called mutiny, and caused millions of credits and damage to the station. The council was meeting to decide what to do about them. Director Thelmos stood before the assembled council members. Behind him, screens showed the empty Viridian 7 station damaged but intact. All personnel safely evacuated and returning now that the crisis was over. The human team acted without authorization, Council Elder Tresh said coldly. They took control of station systems by force. They endangered lives. They saved lives, Thelmos interrupted. 40,000 lives that would have been lost if we'd continued with conventional methods, by luck. Their plan could have failed catastrophically, but it didn't. Thelmos looked at the council members one by one. I've read the reports from the 17 previous rescue attempts. Each one followed proper procedure. Each one failed. The humans broke our rules and succeeded. That should tell us something. It tells us they're reckless, another council member said. It tells us we've become too cautious, Thelmos replied. We have rules for everything, procedures, safety protocols. And somewhere along the way, we forgot that sometimes the right thing to do is the risky thing. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Elder Tresh spoke. What do you propose? No charges, Thelmos said firmly. Full pardons for the entire team and, he paused, recognition. They should be honored, not punished. The debate lasted for hours. In the end, the vote was close. But the humans were cleared of all charges. More than that, they were officially commended for their actions. When Dae-Young received the news, he just nodded. Good, my team did what they came to do. 3 days later, Kyung-soo opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was his team gathered around his bed, Dae-Young standing at attention like he was on duty, Hannah looking guilty and relieved, Taemin reviewing medical charts, and Jiwoo holding his hand. Did we win? Kyung-soo asked, his voice rough. We won, Jiwoo said, smiling through tears. Cool. Kyung-soo tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Ow, everything hurts. You absorbed a lethal dose of radiation, Jiwoo said. You're lucky to be alive. Luck had nothing to do with it. You're just that good. Kyung-soo looked at Dae-Young. Mission report, Captain? Entity safely transitioned out of normal space. All civilians evacuated without casualties. Station damaged but salvageable, 0 fatalities. Dae-Young allowed himself a small smile. It was a good day. Told you Hannah's designs would work, Kyung-soo said. You said my designs were terrible, Hannah protested. They are terrible. They're also brilliant. Both things can be true. 1 week later, the human team prepared to return to Earth. Their ship was loaded. Their mission was complete. But before they left, they received an unexpected visitor. The entity they'd saved had sent a message. It came through instruments that shouldn't have been able to receive signals from other dimensions. Written in mathematics that hurt to read but somehow made perfect sense. Taemin translated it for the team. It says it's safe now. It found others of its kind. They welcomed it. And it wants us to know that it will never forget the small, fragile beings who chose compassion over caution. There's more, Taemin continued, his voice soft. It says that in its species-long memory, humans will be remembered as the first beings to show them kindness when they were most afraid. If we ever need help, they'll come, no matter how far, no matter the cost. Jiwoo wiped her eyes. Even Dae-Young looked moved. We just did our job, Hannah said quietly. Maybe that's what makes it special, Taemin replied. Director Thelmos came to see them off personally. I owe you an apology, he said to Dae-Young. I didn't want to call you. I thought humans were too unpredictable. Too dangerous. We are, Dae-Young said honestly. Yes, but you're also necessary. Thelmos extended his primary hand in the human gesture of respect he'd learned. The Council has made a decision. We're creating a new position, Special Crisis Response Coordinator. We want your team to fill it. You want us to stay? Hannah asked, surprised. No, we want you to be available. When situations arise that conventional methods can't handle, we need people who think like you do. Who see solutions where others see impossibilities? Thelmos looked at each of them. We need humans. Dae-Young considered the offer, then he looked at his team. Hannah was grinning. Taemin nodded. Jiwoo smiled. And Kyung-soo, still bandaged but insisting on being present, gave a thumbs up. We'll do it, Young said, but on one condition. What's that? When we say something is necessary, you trust us? No debates, no votes, no committees. You called us because safe didn't work. Let us be unsafe when we need to be. Thelmos. Thought about the last week, the broken rules, the terrifying moments, the impossible success. Agreed. As the human ship prepared to depart, word of their actions had spread throughout the coalition. Other species watched them with new understanding. Humans weren't just dangerous. They weren't just reckless. They were something the galaxy had forgotten. It needed beings who chose hope over certainty, who valued life over procedure, who believed impossible was just a challenge waiting to be overcome. In a small cafe on a station 3 sectors away, a group of alien students debated the news. "I heard they overloaded a reactor on purpose," one said. "I heard one of them walked into lethal radiation without hesitation," another added. "Humans are crazy," a third concluded. An older alien, a merchant who'd traveled widely, overheard them. "Humans aren't crazy," she said. "They're just willing to pay costs that others won't. That's not insanity, that's courage." The human ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home. Inside, the team was already reviewing data from other ongoing crises in the galaxy. There was always something. Always someone who needed help that conventional methods couldn't provide. "This one looks interesting," Hannah said, pulling up a file. "Reality virus spreading through a digital civilization. 3 species tried to contain it. All failed. Reality virus?" Kyung-soo, who was supposed to be resting, leaned over to look. "That's not even supposed to exist." "Neither was a juvenile cosmic entity hiding in a mining station," Taemin pointed out. "But here we are." Dae-young studied the file. "A whole civilization at risk? Millions of digital beings who existed as pure information, now being corrupted by something that spread like disease through their reality. Conventional solutions had failed." "How long until we can respond?" he asked. 2 weeks if Kyung-soo fully recovers," Ji-woo said firmly. "He's not going anywhere until then." 2 weeks," Kyung-soo protested. "I'll be fine in 3 days. 2 weeks. Ji-woo used her doctor voice, the one that nobody argued with. "Fine," Kyung-soo muttered. "But I'm working on designs while I recover." "Your designs are terrible," Hannah reminded him. "They're brilliant." "They're both," Taemin said, smiling. Months passed. The human team responded to crisis after crisis. A space-time paradox threatening to erase a star system from history solved with a creative application of quantum mechanics and a lot of improvisation. A telepathic plague that spread through thought itself cured using isolation techniques from human psychology and some very inventive mental shields. A dimensional rift growing in the center of a populated world, closed by turning the planet's magnetic field into a massive containment array. Each time, the solution was something no other species would have attempted. Each time it worked. The galaxy began to change how it thought about humans. They were no longer the strange newcomers. They were the emergency response, the last resort. The team you called when everything else had failed, and in council chambers throughout the coalition, a new phrase entered common usage. When faced with an impossible situation, someone would eventually say, "Maybe we should call the humans." It became a mark of how serious a crisis was. If you were calling humans, things were truly desperate. But it also became a mark of hope. Because if humans were coming, there was a chance. No matter how small, no matter how impossible. 1 year after the Viridian 7 incident, the human team gathered for a mission briefing.